You know that voice in your head that says, just one more time, it won't hurt? Well, that's the same voice that keeps you trapped in your addiction. But today here, I'm going to show you how to turn that voice off for good. The internet is full of generic advice you will have heard a million times, such as, you just have to want it, make a list of reasons, you simply have to decide to stop, ignore the urge, and move on. This advice may sound encouraging.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
But in reality, it doesn't work. Each addiction has characteristics that make them addictive, but the one thing they have in common is dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure and reward, and it is what makes you feel good when you eat your favorite food, win a game of video games, or scroll endlessly on social media. The problem arises when dopamine becomes the only thing your brain craves. Every time you indulge in your addiction, your brain releases a rush of dopamine. When you suddenly stop, the dopamine level plummets. Your brain, accustomed to these waves of artificial pleasure, gets pissed off, and that's where the real challenge begins. But don't worry, there is a way out. The first step is to figure out how we can trick the brain back to a more natural and healthy dopamine level. Basically, you have to relearn how to live without that constant rush of instant pleasure. When deciding to quit with an addiction, there are two main approaches: quitting abruptly and gradual reduction. Taking cigarette addiction as an example, the first approach is to eliminate cigarettes and quit smoking in one go. It is considered the most direct method, but it can be difficult for some people because of the rapid onset of withdrawal symptoms, but also effective for others. Gradual reduction, on the other hand, involves gradually reducing the amount of consumption until quitting completely. This approach requires more self-discipline, less shock to the body, and the ability to correct the plan as difficulties are encountered. Let's pretend you smoke 20 cigarettes a day. Instead of simply saying, I want to quit smoking, you say, I want to reduce my cigarette consumption from 20 to 15 a day within a week by replacing them with chewing gum. This is called a SMART goal because specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. The choice between quitting abruptly or reducing gradually depends on personal preference and willpower. At this point, you're probably thinking, okay, I've figured out how dopamine works, and I've decided I want to quit my addiction. But what do I do when the desire to give in is too strong? That's where the nothing rule and the 10-minute trick come in. The nothing rule is simple but powerful. Whenever you feel the urge to give in to your addiction, do nothing. Yes, you got that right, nothing. Do nothing physical to satisfy the impulse. Watch how the impulse evolves. Impulses usually begin with a certain intensity, but if you resist and do nothing, the impulse will begin to decrease in intensity. This happens because impulses are transient. They occur, peak, and then gradually fade away. Accepting discomfort is a key thing because it teaches the brain that it is not necessary to react immediately to every impulse. The trick is to endure long enough for that impulse to pass. But what if those minutes seem like an eternity? You can try an alternative approach. The 10-minute trick. Instead of saying, I'll never do it again, try saying to yourself, I can do it, but only in 10 minutes. This little mental trick tricks the brain, reducing the anxiety that comes from thinking you have to give up forever. During those 10 minutes, occupy your mind with something else. Take a walk, read, meditate, breathe deeply. The goal is to take your mind off the immediate desire. After the 10 minutes, you may find that the urge has diminished in intensity and you may feel more able to say no to your addiction. Keeping a journal can prove extremely helpful. Whenever you feel an urge, make detailed notes of the event. Write down the intensity and duration of the impulse, what you were doing when it started, and the strategies you adopted to manage and overcome it. This will enable you to identify recurring patterns, better understand triggers, and develop a more mindful approach to dealing with impulses over time. If all this is not enough, it is important to seek professional help. Asking for help can seem extremely difficult because of the psychological barriers that often prevent us from doing so. However, it is important to recognize that these barriers are mental constructs and not tangible realities. Overcoming these barriers begins with acknowledging the problem, admitting that you have a difficulty that you cannot handle on your own. You choose a trusted person to confide in, such as a friend, relative, and professional. After identifying the right person, taking the first step becomes the decisive moment. Even a simple phrase like, I need help dealing with something that is really weighing on me, can open the door to a deeper conversation. Finally, it is essential to remember that we are not alone. Asking for help is not an exception, but a necessity that everyone, sooner or later, experiences. Don't expect to feel better overnight. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to feel bored, angry, anxious, tired. These are normal emotions. You can deal with negative emotions through exercise, meditation, and spending time with loved ones. Quitting an addiction is never the hard part. The hard part is relearning how to live without it. You need to change your mindset from, I suffer from withdrawal and feel bad because I haven't smoked a cigarette, to, I am experiencing withdrawal as my body is recovering and healing from smoking. I can't stop. It's too hard. In every day I go without giving in is one step closer to freedom from addiction. I miss the comfort of the cigarette. In I'm learning to find comfort in healthier, longer lasting ways. I feel empty without smoking. In I'm filling that void with experiences and relationships that nourish my soul. Imagine this. You resisted the temptation for days, weeks, maybe even months, and then it happens. A relapse. In an instant, you feel like you're collapsing into a ravine and ask yourself, how did I fail again? Why can't I be stronger? Actually, a relapse is not the end of the world. Imagine you are driving on a road full of potholes. You hit a pothole and puncture your tire. What do? Do you turn back to the beginning of the road, or do you simply change the tire and continue your journey? The same logic applies to relapses. They're not the end point, but just an obstacle along the way. Instead of thinking, I feel bad because I have not succumbed to addiction, try telling yourself, I feel bad because I have succumbed to addiction in the past. This small mental shift can make a big difference. Get comfortable with unpleasant feelings and embrace them head on. The hard part is doing it every day, but it gets better over time. You just have to do it.